Rangers Journal Day.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Rangers Journal. My name is Ross Graham. I am your host for this evening. The dark nights are setting in and the league is well underway, which means we now turn our attention to European football, which we've all been looking forward to. Our upcoming opponents, Malmo, have proven to be a challenge for us in the past. So tonight we have got a special guest who is going to talk us through what to expect this upcoming Thursday. I'm going to introduce our Rangers Journal panel for this evening. Doug, how are you keeping, mate?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Thanks. Looking forward to talking about Malmo, learning a bit more about where they are at the moment, and hopefully finding out that they're in a terrible spot and that it'll be an easy win. Well, we'll see.
Unfortunately, my research suggests quite the opposite. Willie, how are you, mate?
Hi, mate. I'm good. Just enjoying the peace and quiet as my wife's out the house for a few hours.
Nice. The simple pleasures in life, eh?
Absolutely.
I'd like to extend a very happy and optimistic welcome to Skoldie, who is joining us on the Rangers Journal. How are you, Skoldie?
I'm very good, and thanks for having me. It's going to be a fun time talking a little bit about Rangers and seeing where you're at your kind of journey in the league at the moment.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll come on to that very shortly. Firstly, I've got a comment on that amazing football shirt that you've got on. That truly is a thing of beauty. We were talking off air there, and I think it's quite the prized possession of yours. So yeah, very, very nice. First of all, Skoldie, tell us a bit about yourself and where we can find you online.
Yeah, so basically I am a Malmo born and bred. Been growing up with Malmo as a football team. Been going to the games since I can't remember really. Just basically being one of the fans from when with bad time struggles, because we had a really bad time in the start of the early 2000s. And then after that, when we won the league in 2010, everything has been going quite well for us ever since, basically. But yeah, I can be found on Skoldie. Been previous a FIFA pro, so been doing a lot of that. So that's also what I've been doing for a living, kind of doing esports. So basically, my whole life is just circulating around football, basically.
Nice, not a bad vocation, not a bad career. From the sounds of it, Skoldie, it sounds as though I guess Malmo and Rangers have kind of had similar, last 20 years or so where we've both sort of faced challenges. It sounds as though you've responded well to that in the past few years. What have the sort of last decade looked like for Malmo?
I cannot say that, it's, if you recall a little bit about how it was for with Gothenburg in the 90s, if you recall whenever they were beating and going well in the Champions League, that's kind of the era we're going through at the moment. And hopefully we can stay there by dominating, as that's what we've been doing for the past, I would say 14 years in Swedish football, and ever since we qualified for Champions League in 2013 and 2014 first time. So basically, ever since then, we've been just going up and having this kind of economical advantage for the other clubs. But in Sweden, money is not everything, I would say. So even though we've been having the biggest muscles, I would say it's still the other clubs have been coming on to challenge us every now and then.
Yeah, fair enough. How competitive is the Swedish league, just out of interest?
I would say it's very competitive, but it's a little bit, I would say in Scotland you have the two teams that always compete for the title. I would say the recent years it's been Malmo and some other clubs, mainly Djurgården, for example. But at the same time, we have stronger teams like AIK and now lately Elfsborg as well. So it's always some kind of not random team, but maybe some smaller team or something that gets it going. Last year was Elfsborg, and they're proven to do well this year as well. So you're never really guaranteed to win Allsvenskan, even though Malmö's are always like kind of the favorite now the past few years.
Mm-hmm. Those that are watching at home, please feel free to put any questions you might have for Skoldie in the chat, and we'll get to those as we go along. Skoldie, I wanted to ask you about your performance this year. So I was doing a bit of research and I saw kind of 2022 you came 7th, 23 you won on goal difference. I'm sure that was dramatic and exciting and all those amazing things that football gives us. And then this year you seem to have really stepped on and created a real gap between yourselves and the rest of the competition. What's happened this year?
I would say last year we were really, really good. But then at the same time, you had an Elfsborg going equally as strong. So basically, a lot of it is when you're looking at the kind of statistics that there was two teams kind of overperforming. And luckily, because of another Swedish team, Degerfors, they managed to get a point in the not the last round, but the second last round. Uh, they gave us a chance to play the kind of the final for the last game at our home field or home advantage or home stadium. So basically, we won that, and then in basically Rydström had 1 year of creating his kind of philosophy last year. So when we started this year, we kind of had everything we needed, and Rydström also had everything he needed to have a really, really strong spring season. But what happened after that, unfortunately, was that we sold our best player, Nanasi, here in just before the last round of the Champions League, and then as well we sold Derek Cornelius to Marseille, which was a strong factor together with Ponce Johnson as a center back. But what happened also there is that sometimes when we play Europe and in the summer, we always tend to have a little bit of a bad spell that we get a little bit comfortable, and there is also some new players coming in and such. So that kind of affected the summer, but now it seems like we're on a strong path again.
You mentioned Henrik Rydström there. The last time we played you, it was John Dahl Thomason who was manager at the time. What would you say kind of Rydström's philosophy is, and kind of how does that translate on the pitch?
He has something he's familiar or very known for now. I'm pretty sure it's spread also over in the British, because there was some talks about him taking over Brighton, for example, a couple of weeks ago. But he is using something called realism. So basically, everybody is playing very close to each other, and he trusts that his players should have a really, really good connection. So even if he likes to give them homework, for example, so that they go home and study football. All they do is they try to create these relations between both the players and the manager, so everybody has a kind of relation, and it bases out that when you get on the pitch, everything is based on how well you know each other, which is also a kind of philosophy that is like very unique in a way, because we have everybody on one side and they really want to move the ball to the different side.
Interesting. And how's that reflected on the new players? You mentioned some of the new players that have come in. Have they been able to kind of conform to that pretty quickly, or has it taken time to get them up to speed with that philosophy?
Luckily, the players that's been basically coming in and taking the spots of Derek Cornelius and Nanasi are both talents from our own academy. Nils Söderström, the center back, and also Hugo Bolin got his breakthrough year this. So as soon as Nanasi left, he kind of started to fill that spot. We signed Haksabanovic from Celtic. Unfortunately, it seems like it's a little bit of mystery here. He seems to have gotten some kind of injury that has made him been basically out of the squad for some time now. So I think that is not a good signing so far. And at the same time, we've had some other players, for example, Anders Christiansen, who had a heart failure last season. He's actually starting to come back to good old shape now this year, and finally proving the quality that he's had previously. And after this kind of heart failure, I think it had a little bit of a time to get used to everything again. And now he's finally hitting that kind of form again.
Yeah, interesting. It sounds like you've got a nice blend of youth and more experienced players in there, which I think always stands you well, especially in Europe. Look, we've got a question that's come in that I'll bring up on the screen here. Does Skoldie rate Botheim? Would have liked to seen him at Ibrox. So we're talking about Eric Botheim here, the striker who I think it was Salernitana, was it?
Yep, exactly.
You got him from. I think it was a player that we'd had our eye on as well. But for whatever reason, he went to Malmo. I don't know what that was, but I certainly wouldn't have done that. But anyway, so how's he performed this year?
Really, really strong spring season. But after the summer, he's had a little bit of a goal drought. So unfortunately, he's not been kind of getting the only goal he scored, I believe, was a kind of a penalty, I believe, and then he had a goal that wasn't his goal really, but he took the claim for it because he's a striker.
Yeah.
But in the spring season, it was really strong, and now he's fell off a little bit. But he scored here yesterday. Scored a really, really good goal. Just got it on a 1-on-1 with the keeper and chipped it in to 4-0. But you can just see how much it meant to him. And also, he did an assist to our other striker, Kiese Tlin, because both our strikers have had a goal drought. But whenever he's playing at the top form, he's a fantastic player. He fights really hard for the team, and even though he might not score as many goals as he did in the start, he does a lot to the Rydström philosophy by just running a lot and really fighting. But of course, as a striker, you're rated on how many goals you score. So
Yeah,
I would say it's a
yeah.
good signing.
And you said there that there was you got an assist as well as a goal, and you mentioned it was to another striker. What sort of formation do Malmo play?
That's a little bit different depending on because we've been rotating a lot, which is kind of the main reason why we have been dropping a little bit of points here and there now the past few games. But I would say we play kind of a 4-2-2-2 or 4-4-2 in a sense where we have Eric Botheim and Isak Kiese Thelin as the strikers, and then usually going from the wings we have a little bit depending on now. But if Anders Christiansen is playing, we've had him and I would say Bolin. And then, of course, we have our incredibly strong central midfield with Sergio Pena and Lasse Berg Johnson, who are incredibly talented central midfielder. And I don't think I have seen as good as a midfield as we have right now in Malmo in a long time, even though we've had some great players.
Interesting you say that. I know Rangers have been trying to work, just for context, Skoldie, and you might not know, Rangers have been going through, it feels like we've been rebuilding for about 10 years now, but certainly this summer we had a clear out of more experienced high earners on our books, and we've brought in some new players, some of whom have hit the floor running and definitely contributing to the team, but some are still sort of yet to be proven. We're not as many games into the season as yourselves, obviously, and I think midfield's somewhere that we're still yet to find our best three, I guess. So would you say that's going to be where you could see this game sort of being won and lost in that midfield area?
I think so, yeah. Normally, because our philosophy, we want to play it out from the back. And Sergio Pena is, he's from Peru, and he has this kind of South American kind of style of play where he is so calm with the ball, and that does so much for Malmo's gameplay, because the way we just kind of manage to calm down the gameplay and play ourselves out of situations that shouldn't really be possible for a side of Swedish caliber. And at the same time, you have Lasse Berg Johnson, who is so comfortable with the ball, but at the same time running everywhere. Basically, he's everywhere on the pitch.
Yeah.
So I think that's gonna be one of the key features, at least for us, to win the midfield battle, and also being on the home, like having the home stadium advantage. It's something that does a lot to that kind of way of owning the game.
Yeah. I'm going to come on to the stadium in a minute, but I'm going to loop in Willie and Doug here. Lads, we're hearing here from Skoldie clearly that midfield is where they feel they've got legs, they've got ability on the ball, and we know when we've played at some of our toughest games, I'm thinking over on the other side of Glasgow, the midfield has kind of been a key battle for us, and we haven't always come out on top. How are you feeling, Willie, going into this game?
I think sometimes, obviously, going into these games, we obviously don't really get to see the opposition on the television very much. So, to a point, it's obviously going into the unknown for a lot of supporters. Rangers will obviously have a far better knowledge than any of us. They'll have obviously watched the previous games, looking at the strengths. But yeah, look, I think it is fair to say that the midfield battle is always a big one in Europe. And at the moment, we probably still haven't formed our best midfield. Yeah, obviously Bajrami's just come into the team. He played wide left. He might play as the 10. You might see Raskin coming in to play next to Barron to give us a little bit more sort of defensive structure. But I think the one thing we've already learned with the manager is we probably can guess as much as we want, but we'll not really know until we announce the team against Malmo on Thursday night, because we've all thought we knew what the team was going to be for every game, and we've probably been wrong every single time. So we're probably still guessing a little bit.
Yeah. Who would be a football fan? Doug, I just want to get your take on that. I think, as Willie says, we're still yet to get our optimal midfield three, and I think Clement is quite happy to chop and change that midfield three depending on the opponent. Who do you see starting in there?
I think Barron's a shoe-in. He's an obvious choice. He's been the best performing midfielder this year by a comfortable distance. And then I would like to see Diomande in beside him. If Skoldie's saying they've got quality players on the ball, then I think we need to try and match that. as best we can. And he's better on the ball than Sterling, who would be the obvious other choice, although Sterling would give more defensive solidity. So I think you're going to, for me, it would be those two, and then ideally bringing Barami into that 10 role to make the 3, to get the creativity and a bit of speed there as well. I think that kind of aspect of not quite being ready is a theme, I think, sometimes for these type of games against particularly kind of Scandinavian opposition, and other teams where they're much further in the league. I mean, from what I gather, as depressing as it is to say, I don't think we've ever actually beaten, well, not never beaten, but never gotten past a 2-legged tie with a Swedish team. We've played Malmo a couple of times. We've played Gothenburg as well. And I think we've won individual games. We've never got past the tie. And the part of that, I think, will be down to the fact that we're at totally opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to how we're, in terms of where we are in the league. We're just starting, and I believe you guys are about a stone's throw away from lifting the trophy. So it's totally different aspects. And I think, that's going to play a big part. And obviously, it's interesting hearing, from Skoldie there about the plus points there. So, my main question for him tonight would maybe to make you focus on the bits you don't like and say, where would you say the weaknesses are in Malmo if Rangers are going to try and obviously change that history and get a return? How do you think we'd best go about doing that, and what are the areas you think that we would get our most joy at attacking?
I would say recently we were really good defensively, crazy enough, but we had a little kind of a pattern where we were really leaky defensively, that we just basically couldn't catch the right, we weren't really putting the effort in defensively. But what I would say the best way Rangers would be able to strike us is with a high pressure. If we're looking at our game versus Sparta Prague, what they did really well was they had a front 3 basically lining up, and as soon as we got the ball in the midfield, they had either a center back or a midfielder covering that kind of position really quickly. So basically they gave it the area up in between the midfield and the center backs. But at the same time, they were so good at closing it down that as soon as we got the ball there, we couldn't really control it and take the time we needed in those kind of areas. And then, of course, unluckily, they got the first goal, and that does a lot to the confidence of Malmö. I would say that if we concede first at home, things might get a little bit tricky. And if you're solid defensively, the longer the game goes, I think the more frustrated Malmö might get in that sense that you might get a counterattack and score.
And just following on from that question, I trust if you're playing out from the back, then your goalkeeper must be good with the ball at his feet, good distribution, or is there any kind of weakness or fear there?
I would say because we have 2 keepers right now. Dahlin is, I would say, the first keeper. He's in the goal for the most of it, but he is not 110%. He's not kind of like, let's say, comparison Ederson for basically. But at the same time, our other goalkeeper, Friedrich, which we signed from another Swedish team, which was their first keeper, he is really, really good with the ball. And he used to be, when Rydström used to coach Kalmar, he was the goalkeeper for him. But I think Dahlin is going to be in goal. And it's a little bit tricky in that sense. I'm not really sure what kind of way we will be playing, if we will be playing with 3 center backs or 2. But yeah, I would say Dahlin is quite okay with the feet. He's not the best, but he's not the worst. But
sure,
we rarely concede because of the goalkeeper's ability to not be able to be able to use the feet. Basically, it's more if we do other mistakes, I would say, usually in the midfield.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, and you touched on before that the home crowd might start to get a little bit nervous if you go 1 down, and that kind of reflects with the players on the pitch. What should Rangers expect from the Aleda Stadium? What sort of a atmosphere will be awaiting us?
I'm pretty sure you've been heard about the kind of atmosphere. You had a really good atmosphere at Ibrox last year. Unfortunately, we couldn't bring any away fans last time we played, and last time we actually were at our stadium, we only had 1/4 of the capacity. So basically, we were around 5,500, I think. But I think if we get going, we have these kind of special European nights then I think it's gonna be quite tough. Or your neighbor Celtic, they were playing us in a Champions League playoff, coming in from a 3-2 win versus us in Scotland, and then they were just so shocked because of the atmosphere. Then was incredible. When we come to the group stage, it might be a little bit different. It's always hard to kind of see what to expect. We're usually loud, but I know we can peak a lot higher than we might do tomorrow or might do on Thursday.
Yeah, sure. And I'm quite interested to understand what the mood in Sweden was when the draw was made and Rangers came up. I'm guessing that was one of the teams that you targeted to think, okay, we could get points from this match.
I would say, yeah, I think so, because we have a good record against Rangers. Just basically because of, if you're looking at the other teams that were in this pot, they were, I think it was because you were in the pot one, so there was there was Spurs, there was United.
Mhm.
There were other teams that I preferably do not want to play against, mainly because of also these are the kind of tourist traps that attracts a lot of tourists, and I don't kind of like that. I want to have teams that we can beat that is on the same kind of level as us. Even though we probably would have beaten United and Spurs at home, who knows? But I think football-wise, I think Rangers, considering also the track record we have versus Scottish team, I think it's a level we can face off against. So,
Interesting. Well, we'll soon find out, won't we? Are you going to the game, Skoldie?
I am.
Oh, brilliant. Well, you'll have to give us a shout out on your Twitter and let us know how you're getting on there. And I guess last question from me, for anyone of the Rangers fans that are watching, have you got any good bars or hideouts that we can go and visit whilst we're in Malmö?
So I would say most likely, I assume, are all of the three of you guys going to the game or coming to Sweden?
Unfortunately, not. I've got to pick and choose which ones I can go to, and I'm allowed to go to Nice. Malmo, I wasn't allowed to go to that one.
That's a good one. But no, basically what's going to happen is you're going to have access to away supporters always at this place called the Lilla Torg or Little Square, basically.
Okay.
So that's where you're going to be located. It's a little square that has plenty of bars and that you can hang around. So if you just Google Lilla Torg or Little Square in Malmo, you're going to find it straight away, and it's going to be a really nice spot for you to hang out at. I usually hang out there when it's weekends because it's, of course, a really nice, trendy area. But we have Malmo fans. We have our kind of home square at a different square called Möllevångstorget, which is kind of our area. So I would say it's very divided in that sense. So yeah, I think that's probably the best way to hang out around the little square because it's the main center.
Okay, brilliant. And last but not least, I'm going to need a score prediction from you, Skoldie. And this could depend on whether or not you're welcome back on the pod.
It's different. If we get up to the standards as we usually do, I would say. I think also the kind of team you had last time we played were a lot stronger because then you had some players that were well known in my favor. So now I'm probably gonna say 2-1 to Malmo, or perhaps 3-1, depending on what's going to happen. I know we've scored a lot of goals and we've been solid defensively, but in Europe everything can happen. As long as we come out with 3 points, I'm happy.
The feeling's mutual. Skoldie, thanks so much for joining on behalf of everyone at the Rangers Journal. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I wish you all the luck for the rest of the season and in Europe, apart from on Thursday.
Likewise to you, and thanks for having me, guys. And hopefully you will have a great season as well, except the Europa League.
Thank you, Skoldie. See you later.
You. Bye.
So, gents, some good insight there, I guess, into our opponents on Thursday. Guys that are watching at home, if you just want to send any notes in or thank yous to Skoldie for giving up his time for us, that would be very kind of you. William, I'm going to come to you. You've heard that their crowd can really make some noise, and you've heard that actually they've got a pretty good track record this season. Kind of, where's your head at going into this one?
I think what's slightly different now is that they're one-off games, so you're not like thinking it's a two-legged tie. So I think you've got to go to the game believing that it's a one-off game. Let's go for it. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the 8 games overall, you probably need maybe about 12 points to potentially finish in that kind of top part.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine if we can go and even get a draw away in Malmo, I think that would be a really good start for us. They're clearly a good team. You know, you don't sit top of your own league if you're not a good team. They're probably a little bit like us in that they've maybe not been as good in Europe in the qualification. I guess we didn't really get a chance to ask them, but you know, was that a surprise getting knocked out off a Sparta Prague? I mean, clearly they're a good team, so that's not be disrespectful to them, but you know, Malmo maybe felt that was a chance to make it to the Champions League if they got by Prague. But from our point of view, I just see it as a one-off tie. Let's go and have a go. You know, there's still 7 other games after that, so it's not like it makes a difference if we do lose the first game. So I would like to see us just go and have a pop. I would like to see us set up very offensively and have a go, because at the end of the day, we do still have the home ties to come in the other 4 games. So that would give us a good chance to qualify if we can get enough points at home, and anything away from home is just a bonus.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? It's a stick or it's almost a stick or twist. Do you think a point in a game like this would be kind of potentially invaluable, given that we've got home games and some really challenging games? Doug, where's your head up with it?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Obviously, being a new format, it's a little bit of the unknown. There has been apparently some folk that have done simulations for both. I think they'd mainly done the Champions League, but obviously it's the same format. And over something like 2,000-3,000 simulations, apparently the golden number not to get into the top section like William was saying, but to qualify overall is 9 points. So you're looking at like kind of between 9 and 12, depending on where you want to finish. And I think for us, we'd be happy to get just into that middle section. So it is one of those things where, you know, if you can win your home games, then, you know, you're on to a winner. But we've obviously got quite a few difficult ones in there. So I think I agree that I'd like to see us, you know, I don't want us to go into the away games simply trying to get draws. Or not to lose. Because I do think that, you know, there are winnable games despite our history. I mean, every game we've played against Malmo, there's only been a goal in it. It's either been a 1-0 or a 2-1 or something like that. So, I think it's fair to say that despite the fact that, you know, we've been unfortunate not to be able to beat them, that you know, we are of similar quality. Kind of similar sort of statures in terms of like our leagues and things like that. There's just sort of different qualities going on there. So I do think we've got the ability to do it. But I think, like the point I made earlier, my main concern is that obviously, as you mentioned, we're not only in the middle of the rebuild, putting together a new team, but then there's that disparity in terms of we're at the start of the season, they're at the end of theirs. So, you know, they'll be well in good swing, well driven. You know, they know what works for them. You know, they're winning their league, so you know they're. You know, I think they'll. I'm assuming they're favourites for the game, being at home and all that, and they, you know, rightly will be so with that. So it'll be a tough game, but you know, I think if we are confident, we do try and attack them. It was interesting listening to what Skoldie said actually in terms of he talked about the pressing. That to me sounds a lot like Clement's style. He talked about that gap between the midfield and the defence. That is something that we do, or an attempt. So I feel like if we're able to pull the system off well, then we might be able to get something out of it. If that's been something that they've struggled with, it'll be whether we do it well. Because when we've not done it well, we just leave that big gap. And obviously, I mean, we saw Celtic take advantage of that. Ross County got through us through that gap as well, albeit they didn't score. So it could be a case of, you know, just how well we play, and if we play well, it comes off. And it sounds like the first goal is going to be massive because you know, we saw against Celtic what happened when they didn't even score. They just happened to get it in the net and it got cancelled, and that still totally knocked us. So it sounds like the first goal will be a huge one for this game.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. Willie, I want to cast your mind back, unfortunately, to 2021, the 10th of August. Rangers had lost 2-1 over in Malmo, and we brought it back to Ibrox. We scored early on. Morelos scored 19 minutes in, and it looked like it was going to be another famous Ibrox European night. They then got a player sent off at the stroke of half time, and which in the second half, a Mr. Antonio Cholak decided to ruin the party and scored 2 against us to knock us out. I think we were all pretty distraught. I'm just going to take you through the team on this one, Willie. McGregor, Tavernier, Goldson, Balogun, Barisic, Aribo, Davis, Arfield, Wright, Morelos, Kent. Do you think the team that we've got now is better than that one?
I guess because we've not really seen enough of some of the new players, you would have to say no. Maybe come the end of the season, we might feel differently, because obviously we'll have seen more of the players, we'll have more time to judge them. But at the moment, you would have to say no. And that is mainly due to the fact is that team knew each other very well. You know, they'd played in European competition. They'd obviously been together for a pretty decent amount of time. And even just going back to that game, you know, a bit like you're saying, at half time when you're equal on aggregate, you're playing against 10 men, we really should be going on and winning that game. But we somehow managed to find a way to lose it. And that's just one of those nights that you just don't forget, because it was such a frustrating night. And that's just part of football. And I think from our point of view, we're going into this game probably as the underdogs, and probably rightly so. But yet again, we're still kind of trying to work out who's maybe best in certain positions. We're now obviously without our first choice left back with Jefty being suspended, which I do think is still a joke that there's no way to be able to, you know, get that rescinded given how poor a decision it was. It obviously affects the balance of the team because Ridvan's not available. We don't really know if he's going to utilise Sterling at left back. Does he use Robbie Fraser? I'd be very surprised if we've seen Casa, you know, given his limited amount of minutes so far for the first team, you know, being dropped in at left back in that European tie. So I think at the moment there's probably more questions than answers on that front, but I always have the belief, obviously being a Rangers fan, that we can go and win it. So my sort of mental kind of thought process is, yeah, we're good enough to go and win the game, but I'm realistic, obviously, as well, to know that it's a really tough game.
Yeah, for sure. Doug, Willie raises a very good point there about the left-back situation. It's probably one that I hadn't actually really properly mulled over and considered until then. Do you go with Sterling? I feel like I would.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's probably the obvious choice. Obviously, he's got the more match fitness. He's been playing. Your alternative is Fraser, who's obviously not got a lot of experience, despite having played well when he has played. Although the last time he played, he was on the left wing. So, in fact, he was on the right wing even. So, I feel like that it's probably this more solid choice. We'll maybe not get as much attacking. Well, we'll definitely not get as much attacking wise, I think, compared to TFT. But yeah, I think that's. It feels just like it's too obvious of the choice to make, especially given that he seems to have gone off the boil a little bit in terms of playing in midfield. He's not really hitting the heights at the moment in that position, so it maybe makes sense just drop back into his more familiar defensive areas, and then that keeps the door open for Diomande, who, as I said earlier, would be my pick anyway for the midfield.
You don't think you could see Diomande being deployed at left back just to provide that balance?
Just for the fun, you could do.
Well, I mean, stranger things have happened. I think Saka played there recently for Arsenal, and you often see left-footed players being thrown into that sort of left back position if needs must. Obviously not ideal, far from ideal, but an option nonetheless. Willie, well, I was just having a little look there before I come on at the other fixtures that we've got. Some obviously top teams in there: Malmo, Lyon, Stoya, Olympiacos, Nice, Spurs, United, and then Union Saint-Gilloise at the end. When I look at those teams, and no disrespect to Malmo, I think this feels like probably the most winnable game.
Yeah, look, I think the one thing I've learned watching Rangers over a long period of time is you don't take any game for granted. You know, I look back at, you know, games over the years. I mean, I still cry about it to this day. It still feels like the game in Luxembourg. You know, how we lost to a team for Luxembourg still haunts me to this day. Losing in Lithuania, you know, I mean, that was a Walter Smith team that don't think anybody thought we were going to go and lose in Lithuania. And yet, you know, we've managed to get by Dortmund. We've managed to get by Leipzig. We've managed to beat some unbelievable teams just in the last 5-6 years. Games that we probably shouldn't be winning. So I think that's the one thing you take for European football. You never take it for granted. But the big thing for me is that we need to show up and play well, because at the rest of the day, there's always a lot of noise going into these games. Like, you know, Rangers should beat Malmo, this, that, and the next thing, but we shouldn't be. And I think Scotland as a whole, like the actual quality of our performances in Europe over the last 5-10 years have been pretty good. But it still doesn't mean that we can stroll up to this game on Thursday night and expect to beat that team who are sitting top of the Swedish league, who have got a lot of talented footballers, and they're actually doing what we're trying to do, which is to bring through talented young players and develop them and then sell them on for a lot of money, like they've done with the lad that moved to Strasbourg for like 11-12 million euros. So they're doing what we're doing, or what we want to do. So it shows that they're doing things right. They're obviously having success as well. They're obviously a team that's got a lot of confidence. And playing at home, they'll, in my mind, be the favourites to win the tie. And it's us that need to go there and try and win it by playing better than them.
Completely agree. Doug, looking back at kind of where we are in the league so far, and you know, we've picked up a couple of wins on the bounce now. Things are starting to turn a corner. Maybe confidence starting to, you know, come through, and I think we're starting to see from the pictures from the training, the lads seem to be enjoying each other's company and gelling well together. What do you think a result over in Malmo could do for us over this next period of time?
I think it would be a big confidence boost. You know, it'll be a tough game, and I think you know, to open your European campaign with a win, especially an away win, can do nothing but good. You know, you've got a winnable match after against Hibs that you know, could be the start then of a bit of a run of positive results. So yeah, I think it could be a huge thing. I think you know, one of the interesting things about this is I kind of feel like the home and away aspect has been made more important in this new format, because you only play each team once, whether you get that team home or away. Especially, I feel like for us, where we've kind of, you know, built up this this really great thing with Ibrox, and it really can, you know, make a difference for us, and has made a difference in European matches. You know, the home games are huge. I think it's interesting. I mean, what you said about this being one of the most winnable ones. I actually think our last game is our most winnable. Union at home. I think that, to me, that should be. I mean, we messed up completely when we played them the last time in their first leg away, but we were relatively comfortable when we played them at home, and I expect us to do that again. So I kind of mentally want to think that that's not guaranteed, because there's no guarantees, but I feel like that should be a game we have to be marking as that's going to be where we'll get 3 points. And therefore, to me, you know, you're then looking at your games before that going, right, well, where else can we get points in the build up to that? Because if you get the momentum to go into it as well, it could be even more important, because the 2 games in front of that are the 2 hardest, against Tottenham and Man United. You know, I think obviously Man United at Old Trafford will be an incredibly difficult match. Although, that being said, Man United can be a bit of a Frankenstein team themselves. So I wouldn't put past us, if we're at our very best, stealing a draw there. But you know, even that will be very difficult. Tottenham are a really good team as well, but can be got at. So at home, again, you know, I want to go into that. I kind of want them to just go into that game and just go, you know what, let's just crack at it, because Tottenham could beat us 4-0 if they wanted to. But at the same time, that I could see that game being like 5-4, and one of those crazy games that we've had occasionally in the past as well, because sometimes they just leave outrageous gaps. But those will be our 2 toughest games, and you know, I think most realistic fans, if we were to come out of both of those having lost, wouldn't be too furious. So you're looking at those games beforehand then to pick up points. So, you know, getting out of this game with points and with a win would be amazing, because then you're a third of your way to that sort of 9 straight off the bat if you got the win. So that would be huge for us. And equally for Malmo would be equally devastating for them, because I think they'll be looking at this game exactly the same way, going, in fact, even more so for them, because they're at home. So if I was a Malmo fan, I'd be looking at this going, this is a game to win, because we've done it. We've beaten them 6 out of 6 pretty much in the past. So they'll be looking to win, I think, and I'm hoping that'll play in our favour. Then that maybe we can, like say, find those gaps and things if they're going for it. So it's an exciting one. I think it'll be really interesting to see how we approach the game, given where we are. And I don't think we're the team that you showed earlier. I don't think we're that team anymore, unfortunately. But that year we were a team at the crest of its bell curve. They were the when we're putting out Dortmund and that was the pinnacle of that team. Before obviously they started their slide, and this team's very much on the very bottom upward curve of theirs. So hopefully they can use that as a building block and to push off into the season. Yeah,
I agree. I think whatever happens, and we can speculate and have a guess at what Clement's going to do. He's going to have to get this one spot on, because there are two trains of thought, the two schools of thought, should I say. Do you just go for it, get your points on the board early doors, which I would, as a fan, I would love to see, and we go at them and we set a marker out, and the rest of the teams that we have to play turn around and say that they're still a force in Europe, or do you kind of sit back and try and nick something? Who knows what we'll do? I just hope it's one or the other, and not just kind of a somewhere in between where we commit men forward and aren't defensively robust enough. We're going to be wrapping up soon. Willie, I wanted to get your score prediction for Thursday, please.
Yeah, look, I think it'll be a tight game. Obviously, your heart and your head are two totally different things. Your heart's gonna, we'll go there and win. But I think, being realistic, if we can come away with a point and a 1-1 draw, I would probably be quite happy, to be totally honest with you.
Okay, thank you, Willie. And Doug?
Yeah, I think the realistic brain in me says it'll be a draw of some description. Or that's the most realistic outcome. But I mean, I would like to see us nicking it 1-0 or 2-1. Probably more likely 2-1. I kind of feel like they've got the ability to score. They've got a couple of decent players up front, like both of them. So, I'm gonna say 2-1. So I'm gonna go 2-1 to us.
Brilliant.
Two more for Dessers.
I'm going to agree with you, but I think Iggerman's goal is coming. It's been brewing for a while now, and I think it'll be, if it's not this one, it'll be against Hibs.
Great game to get it.
See, he's sort of the unknown, isn't he? I mean, like, I suppose from our point of view, we don't really know Malmo very well, but they're probably looking at our squad with some of the players that we've signed, and they probably don't really know much about them either. I mean, like Igamani, I mean, how many people have actually really seen him play? How much the actual football footage is there to actually see this guy in action? Always like Rangers, he said a very limited amount of minutes so far as well. What if the manager starts him on Thursday night? That like, these are the things we don't know about Clement. He could totally surprise us and put somebody into the team that we're not expecting, and that could be the difference between winning the game and drawing the game. But I think the big thing for me, and I think for a lot of the other fans, is I would rather we went there and try to be aggressive, like try to press them, try to get in the front foot. Because I think if we do that, and even if we come away with a defeat, fans would look at that and think, right, we went and had a go there. I think the one thing that wouldn't be acceptable is if we sat in, and then we ended up losing 1 or 2-0. I don't think that's something that we can afford to do in this game. I think we do need to be aggressive. I think we need to get in the front foot. And whether that means, we look at a Cortez to be a little bit more attack-minded, whether Bajrami comes in as the 10, whether we do look at Dessers to play through there, vice versa. I mean, like, the manager's got options now in the final third of the pitch, probably the most we've had in a couple of years when you look at the squad. So it's not like we don't have the options to change things up either if maybe things aren't going so well within the game. We do have those options now.
Absolutely do. Absolutely. It's going to be an exciting one, lads. So as it was said before, Thursday nights are Rangers nights. Let's hope that continues. Willie and Doug, thanks so much for joining us tonight. And Skoldie, what an amazing guest he was. We'll definitely be getting him back on at some point. He seems very knowledgeable. So thank you very much, Skoldie, for coming on. As I said, Thursday nights are Rangers nights, but remember, every night is the Rangers Journal night.